One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Okay. I feel like today's episode is really going to expose a side of me that maybe you didn't even want to know about, but we're going to go there anyway, because we're going to talk about the fat, ugly truth that most of us are sitting down way too much. Let's just be honest. I think ever since COVID hit, I've put on a solid 5, if not 10 pounds. And a lot of that has to do with a lot more sitting and not as much movement, because I'm not chasing my kids like from soccer practice to school and to all the like go, right? Like we kind of hit this like pumping the brakes and not having as much of an active lifestyle during quarantine and being forced to stay at home. So I'm excited about today's topic because my guest and I are talking about ways that you can be more active whenever you have a role as a podcaster, which, let's be honest, isn't necessarily one that has you jumping up and down on your feet all day. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of podcasting, think of this show as the time-saving shortcut you've been looking for. So let's get right to it, shall we? So like I said in the beginning, today we are talking about the ugly truth that most of us have probably not been as active over the last few months as we would like to be. I know our gym closed down for a long stretch of time. Now, granted, it is open again, but all of my kids are home and they're not allowing like the regular kids activities to go on while I work out, because that would be the normal plan, right? It's like go to the gym and then the kids can go to their activities and hang out for like an hour while I run on the treadmill or lift weights. Like that's not an option right now. So today's guest, Amy Connell, who you may remember from her previous appearance on the Profit Podcast, she spoke all about her blogging to podcasting journey. So make sure you go check that out. That's crystalprofit.com/episode 104, where you can hear all about my first conversation that I had with Amy. But I'm so excited that she is now a reoccurring guest on the podcast because she is actually a personal trainer. And she reached out to me and was like, Crystal, this is just such a crazy time in the world. And I loved watching her journey unfold because she got super scrappy, you guys. She's been doing Facebook Live trainings where she just turns on her phone or her camera in her home gym and she just does a workout right there for her audience. And I know that she has people actively joining her and doing this with her. So she has a mission behind what she's doing to help everyone with their health journey. But here's a little bit more about Amy. So like I said, it's Amy Connell. She's a certified personal trainer and she's been in the fitness industry for almost 15 years. I love that she describes herself as a recovering step counter, an imperfect eater, and the host of the Graced Health podcast. Amy tries to encourage women to strive for balanced, sustainable health and appreciate their God-created bodies no matter what that looks like. She lives in Houston, Texas with her husband, two always hungry teenage boys, and her stray turned princess pit bull named Grace. And I have to tell you, I have actually had a meal with Amy. We met in person for the first time at the Spark Christian Podcast Conference, and we just had so much fun, just like we did in this raw, vulnerable conversation that we're going to have today about being active, even when what you do most of the time involves a sedentary lifestyle. So here's my interview with Amy. All right, everybody. I'm so excited to have a return guest. So welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back. This is exciting to be here as a return guest.
Yes, it's funny because I was thinking about it and I was like, wait, we've already had Amy on the show. So Amy was in episode 104 where we talked about her blogging journey because Amy blogged for several years and then she decided to start a podcast. So if you want to go check out the beginning of her story, she is actually like, I can't wait. We're going to dive into all the transformative things that have happened for her since she started podcasting. But that's episode 104. Make sure you go listen to that podcast if you are in the stages of maybe transferring your experience as a blogger to a podcaster. But Amy, share with us what has happened since you started podcasting. Just tell us all the things.
I have found the transition to blogging, from blogging to podcasting, just to be the next right step in my journey. I've started wanting to blog. I loved writing. I think I found my writing voice. I think I had to work through some things to really refine my mission, refine my message. And when I started the podcast, I tell you, I feel like I have made more connections with people through their ears than I ever did writing. And that process, and I think we might have talked about that on the first episode. But last summer, I just took my summer off of blogging. My kids were home from school, and I just kind of needed to take some time and reflect and figure things out. And what I decided is I connect with people through podcasting more than I do with blogging, and I get blogs in my inbox now and I'm like, ooh, love them. I support them. Delete without even reading it. I'm just being honest. Because unfortunately, we don't always want to take the time to read the words that are so laboriously created. And I have not looked back. One of the things that you and I talked about was like, how do I keep communication with people over their computers while doing things in their ears? And so you and I do our show notes a little different, which I think is great and a great example of how one way is not the right way. But I actually will send out show notes to the people on my email list. And then if I have a download, if I have a piece of support, then I'm like, hey, I've created this just for you. I just send that to them automatically so they don't have to go get it. That has been really good. It's funny. I was talking with a friend of mine and she was like, gosh, this is great. And then you created this podcast called Graced Health. And it was like, she didn't even know that I've been writing for 4 years. So it has really it has opened up a lot of communication. Just based on the content, it's made it really easy to serve other people, even those who aren't typical listeners. I can say, hey, I did this and let me send it to you. And then they can be served in that way. And I don't feel pushy, and I don't know. It just feels a little bit different. So it was the right step for me at that time.
Oh my goodness. That's so awesome. And I love that you share, just that it's just a different way of reaching people. And some people need to be, touched with, listening to a podcast, reading a blog, or watching videos, like kind of, there's just so many different ways that you can reach people, because I'm the same way. There's a lot of, some people will send me an article and I look at it and I'm like, as a busy mama of three, I'm just like, there's like, can you like transcribe, like put it in my ear somehow, like put this into my ear and then I can listen to it. I don't have time to just stop and read something that's going to take a long time. So I like hearing your take as well, because I totally relate to that. So when did you actually launch your podcast? I was trying to remember.
October 7th.
October 7th.
Of 2019. So what's that, 7 months ago? Eight months
Yes.
ago, something like that. Within the last
Something like that.
year, not calendar year, but 12 months. And it's been great. I love it. I mean, now don't get me wrong, there are parts of it that are draining beyond belief, but
Yeah.
but I do
But you
really
keep
enjoy
showing up.
that. Yes, I do. I do.
Oh my gosh. Well, Amy, I know that we wanted to talk about, it was funny because Amy is actually, she's been one of my consulting clients and we've had so many conversations, and I love, she'll send me a Facebook message and she's like, I hope I'm not bugging you, but I want to talk about this. And I'm like, yes, I love talking about strategy and working on your business and all the things. But she came to me with an amazing idea and I'm just so glad that we're sharing it today. But she was talking about our sedentary lifestyles as podcasters and working from home. So let's dive into all the things that you have to share with us today.
Yeah, well, some of this honestly just comes out of a need that I have had. I am a personal trainer. I've been in the fitness industry for 15 years. Before I started blogging, before I started doing Graced Health, which was 5 years ago this past May, I was just up and around and moving. And, like you, I was in the corporate world. That was phase one of my life. Phase two was a stay-at-home mom. This is my phase three. And all of a sudden, my phase three took me from putter, do this, do that, to sitting and sitting and sitting and sitting. So here I am talking about healthy lifestyles, talking about moving your body and learning to love how love what you do, or hate, or do what you hate the least, or and just moving. Yet at that same time, I'm sitting a lot more than I used to between either writing or podcasting. Editing takes time. I'm still not great at editing. I still have to listen to the whole episode. Like, I know that you have talked about, I just wait a few seconds and I go back. I'm like, I can't do that yet. I don't trust myself yet. So I have to listen to the whole thing, which, depending on the length of the episode, is anywhere between 20 minutes and an hour. And so I was sitting a lot. And while I have the knowledge and I know that I need to be moving, I wasn't necessarily doing it because I wasn't being intentional about it. So there's that aspect. The other aspect is, like you said, Crystal, we have a really sedentary lifestyle. And even if you are not a podcaster, or if you are a podcaster and you have a 9 to 5 job where you're sitting down, well, that's just a lot of sitting. And I know we're not necessarily commuting as much right now, but there's still the commuting aspect. Just sitting, sitting, sitting. And so what I wanted to do was just provide a few simple movements. On my podcast, I'm always like, what's one simple thing I want you to remember? So just a few simple movements that you or your listeners can integrate into their podcasting lifestyle or experience, whatever that is. I know the time that it takes to do a lot of this stuff. And these are designed for anyone. I'm not asking anyone to stop and do 10 burpees. Like not the time.
Thank goodness.
Yeah,
Because
no,
we would kick you off real
I
fast
know
if you
you
did
would.
ask us to do that. We would say, no, Amy, like you're done. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah. As you should, actually, as you should. But, one of the things, if you think about what we're doing when we're, let's just say, editing. So we're sitting at a desk more than likely. We've got our hands up on our keyboard or our mouse. Our shoulders are kind of hunched over. Again, we're sitting, so we're just on our butt. And what I would like for people to be aware of, and again, this is a reminder for me too, is the importance of balancing that out. So, for example, one thing that you can very easily do, even if you're seated, is if you've been sitting a while, take your hands, clasp them back behind your back, and then just roll your shoulders back. So what that does, you're doing it right now. I love it.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
But
I'm
what
like,
that
I'm standing
does,
up.
yes, what that does is it takes your pectoral muscles, your chest muscles, from being in a flexed state to opening them up and stretching them. So that's a really great thing to do if you are, if you're at a desk, if you're driving a lot. I mean, if you're constantly on your phone, by the way, how are we on our phone? Which I do want to get to here in a second, just as a general PSA. But so that's one thing you can do. You can go up to a wall and either on a wall or even better like on a door jamb or something, and put your arm out there and then open up that chest. So you're taking your chest away from the wall, and again, that's going to give you that same stretch to counterbalance, because what can happen if we are not counterbalancing our movements is we can get injured, or those muscles can get really lazy, and then the muscles that are stronger will take over, which creates imbalance, which creates injury. So it's just one of those things to, people walk around, tech neck is a thing. Poor posture is contributing to so many ailments in our bodies. And so just doing simple things like this will help. I don't want to go any further before I talk about the phone thing. So I'm going to, when you are on your phone, I love to teach people a better way of being on your phone, because and let me tell you again, this is things because I notice myself doing it. But if you'll stand up tall, I like to say, and Crystal, I know you have 3 boys. I have 2 boys. When they go to the
Yes.
pediatrician office and they're getting measured, what do? They put their hands down there by their side and they push it down and they go up, 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 because they're wanting to be just as tall as possible. So that is great posture. And then if you will get your phone and hold it out, maybe at about chest level, then your eyes can look down, because I know that ideally it's up at your eye level. But look, let's be honest. No one wants to hold our phone up there because number one, we feel like a dork. And number two, we don't want other people seeing our screen. Not even
Yeah.
there's nothing bad on it. I mean, we just don't like, this is just like, this is my private conversation. I don't want people seeing what I'm saying.
Right.
So you can, hold it down more at chest level, but then your eyes can go down, but your head stays back. So, sorry, that was a little bit of a side tangent.
No, this is so good because we're actually our oldest son, we've noticed that, he kind of has the slumped over posture, and we're always reminding him, we're like, well, you need to stand up. And so it's become this habitual thing that we do in our home, where it's not just him, it's like the kids remind us too. It's like posture, like that's all we have to say. There's one thing, you say that one word, you come into our house and say it, and everyone will straighten up. And we're like, okay, because we've told them we've got to get better about this too. It's not just him, it's not just the boys, like it's me, it's my husband, like all of us. We it's so bad, and I've noticed it in other people as well. And of course, I'm not going to walk up to a stranger and like grab their shoulders and be like, stand up straight. But I do know, as like a culture, like we got to work on this, because it does. So what is having bad posture? Like, what all can that actually do to your body over time?
Well, that's a great question. It can cause neck injuries, it can cause back injuries, and you can actually even start to, your core will lose strength. Your core is, if you think of, people think of their core as like six pack abs, like, oh, I need to work on my core. I need to work on my core. It is so much more than that. I think it's 27 muscles, if I remember correctly. Don't
Oh,
quote me on
wow.
that. And if you think about from the bottom of your chest all the way down to just below your rear, that is technically all of your core muscles. So, I grew up in Oklahoma. The movie Oklahoma, you would see them like cinching up in their corsets. That's kind of what our
Yeah.
core is. I mean, if you think about that area that's covered, and when we are having poor posture, when we are looking down, when we're hunched over our computer screen or our keyboard or whatever, then we are not strengthening our or we're allowing our core to not work like it's supposed to. And then it's kind of like a domino effect. I mean, if, without a strong core, without a strong back, then when we are asking our body to do things in different ways, then that is what's going to injure us. I mean, if you think about going to Costco and picking up those, what is it, like a 40 pack of bottled water, and picking it up from the pallet and putting it on your grocery cart. I mean, that is utilizing a lot of our core. And that's the kind of stuff that can get you injured just as much as anything in the gym. So when we're not using our muscles the way that they were intended to move, then we are inviting them to complain. And by complain, I mean, getting injured or straining or something like that.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
Yeah, no, it's so, and I love that you gave such an example of just going to Costco and like, doing something that we think of as like, oh, well, that's just an everyday thing, or picking up your kid, like, they fall down, they get hurt, and you bend down to pick them up the wrong way. I mean, I've done that before, or, we have a 2-story home, so I've had to pick up my youngest when he falls asleep and carry him upstairs. If the older ones fall asleep, I'm like, y'all are just sleeping on the couch. I'm not carrying you upstairs because y'all are too heavy. But I can see like how you have to have that muscle strength. So as podcasters, like you said, we're recording, we're probably on our computer. What are some of the things that we can do besides just stretching? Are there like, I know, okay, so this is like a quick aside. I know you recently got your standing desk and you're really excited about it. So talk to us about it. Talk to us about it.
I tell you what, if anyone has ever wondered about if Instagram marketing is successful, I will tell you that this is how I came to it. So being with COVID right now, just the dynamics at our home has changed. I kind of got kicked out of the office, which is fine. And my husband has been working in there, and I've been trying to find a place that kind of everything can be in one place. I really struggle with being cluttery. I struggle with like just I'm organized, but I'm messy. And so I just kind of needed a space like to call my own and to have everything in one place. And so we decided that the room that I'm in now would be a really good option. And I was looking at desks, and this is, I think what you will about this, but I think I had gone, to IKEA and a couple other places looking for desks. And then I was like, well, I think I found one. And then it was taking forever. And then lo and behold, up on Instagram, I see an ad for desks by Upright. And it was a little bit more than what I was wanting to spend. But I started thinking, this is good. This is what I need. And I will tell you, Crystal, I actually, all of this talk about injury, I'm really truthfully kind of ashamed to admit that I hurt myself on Sunday running. And I was doing sprints and I just didn't stretch well enough, because when you're 45, you need to stretch really well before you're sprinting. And standing really helps the blood flow. When you're sitting for long periods of time, it can really constrict the blood flow. It can constrict the hydration in your connective tissue, which is probably more geeky than anyone wants to know. But that can impede your impede the recovery process. So for me, this standing has been great, because I feel like my hamstring is healing a lot better, and I'm just loving it. I mean, I can go up, it can go down. I don't have a chair yet because I haven't figured out exactly what I wanted, so I pulled out one of those big stability balls and I'm sitting on that whenever I need it, but
There
for
you
the most part
go.
I'm standing. I mean, I think I've sat down for maybe an hour out of the I don't even know how many hours I've been here. So I'm loving it. I think it's great. And the nice thing about it too is you can go up and down. This particular brand, you can kind of customize it so you can get what you need out of it. But I love it. I would definitely recommend it.
Oh, that's so good. So we bought one. We purchased a beautiful desk. It's like this nice wood writing desk. And then I was like, I don't love it. I was not crazy about it. It was not comfortable like when we had the computer on it. So we have a standing desk. So that it's like one of those that sits on top of the desk. So it's like it's not boarded, bolted down or anything like that. It's just something, but it's super heavy. So it's very stable. And it is a game changer for me in particular, because I get up so early. I'm on the computer first thing in the morning and then usually in the afternoon. And I got to tell y'all, if you find yourself feeling sluggish in the afternoon, if you have a standing desk, and tell me if this has been your experience, I feel like I have more oxygen flowing through my body. So I'm more awake. I don't know. Has that been your experience? Like, as opposed to just sitting in the afternoon, like after lunch, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I just need a nap. Whereas if I'm staying, like right now, we're recording this, it's right after lunch, I'm standing and I just feel more awake. I feel more alive.
Yes, absolutely. And I think too, there is a little bit of science to that in terms of your oxygen. If I remember correctly, those who stand more throughout the day, and I can't remember the period of time, I'm not really into like calories and burning calories. I spent way too much of my life doing that, and that's part of my story is coming out of that. But you burn an extra 100 calories a day just standing, which
Oh,
means
wow.
you're utilizing more energy and your oxygen is flowing a little bit more, which means you're breaking, you I won't get into all the geeky stuff, but it the answer is yes. That makes
Well,
sense.
no, but that's so helpful. And that's why, I so appreciate you knowing all the geeky stuff, because this was just kind of a hunch for me. It's like, well, I guess, because I find myself, I'm not always a sloucher, but when I'm tired, I do find myself like, I need to do more of the stretches, what you're talking about, just like kind of putting my shoulders back, sitting up straighter, because that does help with the oxygen flow. But man, when I stand up, like I just feel like, okay, I can do this. Yeah, my legs will get tired. And I'm not saying that it's just like, it feels like I'm standing on, a cloud or anything. Sometimes my legs get tired. And so, like, what kind of a balance would you suggest if somebody's listening and they've been on Zoom meetings all day and then they do podcasting all day and they're just mostly sitting down? How can they transition? Because I feel like it's kind of like anything. You can't just go cold turkey, like expect someone to stand for the next 12 hours of their day whenever they haven't done it. So how could we kind of ease into this lifestyle?
I would say stand until your legs get tired and then sit until your butt hurts. I mean,
Oh, that's good.
just making it simple. And then I also would, kind of going back to your feeling a little bit more alive and a little bit less sluggish. I would also like to remind or educate you on the benefits of just a 5-minute walk outside. 5 minutes, science has shown it can boost our creativity. It can wake us up a little bit. And so, don't discount those little bitty micro periods of time that you can not only move your body, but also get your mind going as well. I don't know about you, and I know you, and I know this because I listen to your podcast, Crystal. I know that you will do a lot of prep work ahead of time, and then create your show notes out of that. And I kind of do a little bit of a hybrid, like I do prep work and then I do show notes, and I get so stuck, and it is so laborious to me sometimes when I'm creating those show notes. And really, just if I can just get outside and move, then my mind will kind of start to the neurons will start, going in different ways. I don't know enough about brain science to speak to it very well, but that can really be a game changer too. So rather than just like sitting through and just allowing yourself to just walk for like 5 minutes outside is it can be really big.
Oh, that's such a good tip. And, one thing for me, and it's funny because I think that this is what has helped me in many ways. And it's probably just like, oh my gosh. So I've had 3 kids, and I'm just going to be real transparent. If this grosses you out, then, just pause for a second. But
Nothing
I've had three
grosses me
kids.
out.
I'm like, I've had 3 kids. I have a tiny bladder, and I intentionally drink a ton of water throughout the day. So if someone tells me, like, I am shocked when some people tell me, oh, my mom, she's told me, well, I can sit at my computer for 3 hours without, stopping. And I'm like, I would pee my pants. I would need to have a diaper on if I was planning to sit. So for anybody out there that's like, how do I get up and move? Drink more water. And that will make you get up and move around.
So, Crystal, you and I are on the exact same wavelength. That was actually one thing I wanted to recommend to people to help encourage them to get up and move around is drinking more water. So, for the coffee drinkers out there, get up, try and have 8 ounces before you have your coffee in the morning. And, I think one of my sons said, Mom, I can feel my organs waking up. And I'm like, yes, I get it. And then every time you go to the bathroom, if you can try and drink 6 to 8 more ounces, then you are starting that cycle. And so you like just exactly like you just said, you're forced to get up and move around for a little bit.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, I know that you wanted to share some other tips with us today about stretching or just moving your body for people that like all body types, because I know that you like your particular audience is for women over 40, but you have some just tips for everybody, people that like you said, aren't in a specific category, in a specific compartment of a body shape, a body age, or even physical fitness. So what are some of those tips that you wanted to share with us today?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing, like we talked about, is that chest opener stretch. Another one is, and this is really hard for me because I'm standing in front of the mic and I want to move, but then I'm going to be away from the mic, so I'm going to try and really hard to just walk you through this. But if you just stand up, again, that nice posture that we talked about, with your feet slightly wider than your hips, and then if you just kind of make a circle with your hips one way, clockwise, and then the other way, what that does is that creates greater hip mobility. So if you think about your femur going into your hips, it was designed, that's a ball and socket joint. That was designed to go in all different directions. The problem is with our lifestyles, it tends to go forward and back, walking, sitting, biking, whatever that is, more sitting. And so when we do those hip circles, that allows us to move our legs, move our hips in the way, again, that they were designed to move. So again, with the injury prevention. Another thing that I really encourage people to do is just balance on one leg. And this can be done anytime throughout the day. I like to recommend doing it when you brush your teeth. So like in the morning when you brush your teeth, balance on your left leg. In the afternoon or the evening when you brush your teeth, balance on your right leg. And then obviously, I mean, if you're like me and you have like toothpaste paste coming down your mouth when you're brushing your teeth, you might have to adjust a little bit. And then if you really want to get fancy with it, when you bend over to spit, I told you that nothing was too gross for me. So when you bend over to spit in the sink, well, just kind of kick your leg back, but continue balancing. So that's a really great progression once you are not challenged by just balancing. That again is something, I mean, I know you've got listeners of all ages, but as we age, no matter how old you are, in 10 years from now, you're going to have less balance than you do now, unless you are intentional about it. So that is something that I really recommend people doing. Sitting with proper posture, say that fast 5 times, is really
Right.
helpful. And I know that, I mean, look, I'm not the best at that either, but just being aware of it, I think really does help. And then there are a lot of studies that talk about your NEAT. And I don't know if you're familiar with this, Crystal, but NEAT stands for non exercise activity thermogenesis, which is a really fancy way of saying exercise that's not, or I'm sorry, movement that's not formal exercise. So getting up and feeding the dog, or walking the dog, or going up, taking your boys upstairs when they fall asleep on the couch, all of that kind of stuff is called NEAT. And if you can intentionally move for 3 minutes every 30 minutes, which is not a big ask, I don't think, then that will increase your basal metabolic rate, which is your metabolism. It can actually, the studies also have shown that it reduces your mortality rate. So I don't know about you, and I know you're a runner. I know you exercise, but I exercise because I want to live a vibrant life and not die early. Uh, so just adding in those 3 minutes every 30 minutes, and the best thing I can recommend is set a timer, because that will keep you accountable to doing it. I actually created, if it's okay if I mention this,
Yes,
I
let's hear it.
created a download that you can get on my website. So if you need a few ideas, I have one download that's going to give you two different things. One is stretches. And so it's 6 stretches. Hold them for 30 seconds long. And it's the ones that we've talked about here. I have one more actually. So 6 of those is 30 seconds, 30 seconds long is 3 minutes. And then the other is if you are someone who does like to move, who, you've been working out in one capacity or another, I call it 10 by 10. So like one of the things is push-ups. Do 10 push-ups every 30 minutes. And then squats and, things that aren't going to get you big, hot and sweaty. And again, there's no burpees in here. It's not too crazy. But again, it just kind of gets you moving and it will help your brain be more creative. It can wake you up. Like you said, it can just kind of do a little bit of a switch to help. The other thing that I wanted, sorry, I'm going back here. I apologize for the other stretch that I think is really helpful is one that stretches our hip flexors. So if you will take your feet and if you put your feet together and then take your left foot back and then take your right foot forward. So they're both facing forward, but they're kind of far apart, maybe like 2 feet apart. Keep both of your legs straight. And again, you have that good posture and lean forward and kick your hips back. You're going to feel a nice stretch on your hamstring, on the hamstring of your forward leg, which is the back part of your leg. And then take it back up and then push your back leg forward. I'm sorry, the hip of your back leg forward and squeeze that glute, which your glute is your butt cheek, basically. And that will stretch your hip flexor. Our hip flexors are one of the tightest muscles we have because they are on the front of our front of our hips. And they are always in that flexed state because we are sitting so much. So again, back to the sitting, but that's a really great way to stretch your legs. And I'll stand up and do that in the middle of editing. Like I'm just kind of waiting for something to do. So any of those, I would definitely recommend if you're just kind of wanting to incorporate a little bit more movement throughout your day.
Well, I so appreciate that. I want to go back to you brushing your teeth because after you said that, and while you were talking, I was imagining you, and I need to ask your boys and your husband because I imagine you like putting the dishes away and throwing your leg back, and like folding laundry and like stretching your legs. But it's funny.
Crystal, I would never do that.
Oh my gosh. The reason why I say that is because like we do dance parties in our house. Like this is something that we do, if not on a everyday basis, it's every other day. Like the kids, especially, since they've been at home and we haven't been able to do kind of regular cycles of intentional exercise every single day. And if I realize like they're just kind of getting restless and I feel the same way, like there's a lot of pent up energy. We all just kind of have to get out. Dance parties, you guys, like just turn on a song. It doesn't have to be, I'm trying to think of Freebird, it doesn't have to be something that's like 20 minutes long. It could just be a quick, like, just get the energy going and move around a little bit, because that can help you just get the blood flowing and get that oxygen going. And then incorporating so many of these stretches that Amy has talked about, because she knows what she's talking about, you guys. Like, she has done this herself, not only as a personal trainer and coaching other people, but you heard her story. Like, she's obsessed with her standing desk and being able to do this. So she knows firsthand how important it is to just incorporate something that is not sitting on your butt all day, every day, because it's not good for your health.
Yeah. And I think too, I mean, it's a long-term, first of all, the dance party. Absolutely. I can't believe I forgot that. I think that's because my boys are 15 and 16 and would prefer not to dance with me.
Right. I can still rope mine into doing it
anymore. But that's a great idea. That's a great idea. And the other thing too, and this is one thing I'm so passionate about, is, I say on my podcast, this podcast is for women who want simple and grace-filled ways to take care of themselves. I think the fitness industry, and then those who are really geeky about that kind of stuff, and I'm guilty of this too, but it can be complicated, way too complicated. And all of a sudden people feel like there's all these different rules that they have to abide by and do all of these things. And it doesn't have to be that way, because my desire for my clients, for myself, for you, for your listeners, is to be able to do the things that you love to do for as long as you want to do them. And doing simple things like this will really go a long way. Yeah, you can go to the gym. Yeah, you can go on a run. Those are great to do. There's so many benefits to them. But, for some people, they're like, I don't run unless I'm being chased by a bear. Well, then you don't have to run. You don't have to run. But, find a way that you like to move. And sometimes that just starts with going on a 5-minute walk. And that's okay. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who feel like if they can't do it the way that the industry, or the powers that be, whoever that is, says that they have to do it, that they're failing in it. And I think I just heard a quote the other day that was like, failing means you haven't given the effort. And that's not how it is. Just do a little something and be happy with what you've done, and be confident in how you're moving your body. And then as time goes on, you can move it more. But I just don't think that we have to get caught up in all of these stupid rules about how we have to move. Just move.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I love that you just gave everybody permission to do it in an imperfect way. You know that is just a motto around here, is you have to start somewhere. And if that means you drinking a little bit more water and getting off your booty for a few more minutes every single hour, then, that's taking a step in the right direction for all of us being healthier. And honestly, I have to tell you that having just a little bit more energy on your podcast while you're recording can actually make a really big impact on your show. Wouldn't you agree?
I completely agree. And in fact, I have listened to myself when I have been a little tired and doing an intro, especially like right before, and I'm like, oh gosh, I sound like I'm dragging. So yeah, I think that can absolutely translate into the ears of your listeners. It can translate into how they connect with you, because if they think that you're tired, then they're going to think that you don't want to be hanging out with them when you really do. And then maybe they don't want to hang out with you if they're like, well, if she doesn't really care enough to be, excited, then why am I listening, or something like that? I mean, and maybe that's taking it a little bit too far, but yeah, I absolutely think that the dots connect so much farther than we realize that sometimes as well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Amy, this is so good. I feel like we could talk about this forever. And I'm so glad that we got to talk about your standing desk, because I know you were so excited about it.
So excited about it.
Oh my
I
gosh.
have to tell you too, Crystal, really quickly. I was dying over here. I absolutely do the whole balance thing, kicking one leg up when I load the dishwasher.
I'm going to need some proof of this. I'm going to need your boys to record this next time.
Oh gosh. No, I
So
think
funny.
actually a long time ago, I even did a Facebook Live on it. I mean, this was way back in the archives, but yeah, I mean, little things like that. It's so dumb. The only problem with that is you only load the dishwasher from one side and, we like to be balanced. But, the other thing too, and kind of going back with what we were just talking about is on my podcast, I try to remember, but I end up, what's the one simple thing I want you to remember? Because if I've given 25 minutes of a lesson, or if I've had an hour's worth of a conversation, like that's a lot of stuff. So I try and narrow it down, like one simple thing to remember. And it would kind of go back to what we just talked about, which is, what is the most doable and realistic thing for you? Don't worry about what I've said. Don't worry about, what works for Crystal or anything like that. But just think about what works for you and is what is realistic, and then do that. And if you don't know where to start, then I would actually start with that little hip flexor thing that I was talking about. I call it a teeter totter. But it has to work for you. No one else. It doesn't matter what everyone else does.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all of this today. But I have a question, and that is, are you up for some rapid fire questions?
Of course. Sure thing. You know that
I'm
this is
so
a little
funny.
unfair because I listen a lot to your podcast.
Yeah. But it's good because we were talking about this, and Amy was like, "Okay, I'm super prepared. I remembered the rapid fire questions," and I was like, "Oh man!" So I thought about throwing you for a loop and like just making some up on the spot, but I'm not going to do that to you because
You
I know
can do
you
that.
prepared.
No,
So
you can do that. You can do that.
well, my first one, it's funny because, you have a totally different perspective than you would have the first time you were on the show anyway, because things have changed. So much has changed in your own journey. So, my first question is, what advice would you give to a brand new podcaster?
It's funny. I do not feel to be a seasoned podcaster at all. However, I've had several people reach out and be like, "Hey, I see you're doing this. What do you recommend?" And this is the honest, solid truth, Crystal. I say go listen to two different podcasts. One is the Best Sprout on how to start a podcast, because I feel like they give you a lot of information. I was like, and then go listen to Crystal Profit. I was like, scroll through. I was like, find the ones that seem to work for you, and then go in there. I was like, and I'll call and give them the spiel. So those are the two, like, as far as absorbing and learning and educating, that's the one aspect of it. And then I would say, just keep it simple. You talk a lot about being scrappy. I feel like I'm a pretty scrappy person. This is actually my first interview I've recorded outside of my closet. And that's only because I have my wonderful standing desk and I have everything in one direction. But scrappy is fine. I mean, I have, my mic is not great. I have, it's sitting on top of a towel, to absorb the sound. I have pillow coverings and in front of me to absorb the sound, and that's fine. That's fine. I've actually gotten a lot of comments on the quality. So I'm like, well, you would never know where I was recording these things. So, I think scrappy's fine. And then the other thing, you said one, I'm giving you three. The other thing is, I would say don't get too caught up in the editing. I have gone back and listened to some of my initial episodes where I was really concerned about the content, and I think the content is really good, but the editing is not so good. And I kind of wish I would have just allowed myself to flub over my words. I tend to take a lot of pauses when I'm thinking a lot, and I wish I would have just kind of kept that. Or, I do what they call in Toastmasters double clutches. Like I'll start a sentence and then I'll stop and then I'll go some other direction. I just leave it in there. I mean, I would have just, that would be the other thing. It's like editing, schmediting. I mean, you'll get it, but if something's egregious, do it. But otherwise, just let it in. That makes you more relatable to the listeners anyway. That's what my friend
Yeah.
Crystal Prophet tells me, at least.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for the shout out and for pointing people to this podcast, because I love that this is the number one thing that people tell me is when they listen to I was like, thank you so much. It's basically saying thank you for being so imperfect. And it's not, they don't always say that, but it's like, thank you for leaving your kids screaming in the background. I'm like, oh my God, I totally forgot they were screaming in the back. You could hear that, where it's like, thank you for leaving this in where you messed up. And I'm like, okay, but honestly, I just don't think twice about it because I don't want you to think twice about it. I don't want anybody listening to this to think that it has to be perfect. You guys, I got booted out of the office today because my husband was dealing with conference calls. I'm on my $20 microphone and I'm sitting in my bedroom. And so I told Amy, I was like, I'm standing up. Like, this is my standing desk today is my dresser in my bedroom. And
Yes.
but we're scrappy. Like, you got to get it done. So I'm so glad that that's something that you as a newer podcaster are passing on to other podcasters. I so appreciate that. So my next question is, okay, this is a two-part one. Who would be your dream podcast guest? And what is the dream podcast you would want to be on?
This is the one when I hear it and when I hear you ask people, I'm like, ooh, what would my answer be? So this is why I actually was like, okay, I better be prepared if she's going to ask me, if she's going to ask me that, because it's a hard question. I'm a podcast junkie. I mean, I listened for years before I ever even thought about doing one. Have you listened to Everything Happens with Kate Bowler?
I haven't.
Okay. It's amazing. It is amazing. So she is a woman in her mid-30s who was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, and she had an 18-month-old boy at the same time. So her podcast is nothing to do like with Graced Health and all of that kind of stuff, but she has such a gentle spirit where she has really hard questions. I've learned a lot from her about how to deal with hard situations, especially with people who are sick, with dying, about, what to say, what not to say. And I just really, she's vulnerable. And it's just such a safe spot. And there was one time in one of her podcasts, and she was talking about how she had just been diagnosed. And then she read this research that exercising when you're in the middle of having treatment, like chemo, I don't know what kind of treatment she was having, but treatment could be really helpful to that. And I'm like, I would love to talk about that. I mean, what is that like? What is it like to be in the middle of treatment, physically, emotionally, mentally, and working out, and like I would love to dig into that just a little bit more, and that would be my excuse just to have a conversation with her, because I think she's just a really incredible person. And then I don't even know for the guest, to be on. I will say I am a fan of the For the Love podcast with Jen Hatmaker. I think she is very introspective. She thinks about a lot of different things. She's really good at allowing herself to think differently. And that is such a passion of mine, is helping people to think different about their health, about fitness, about how it doesn't have to, you don't have to look like, the magazine or the Instagram feed or something like that. And so I would love to dig in with that a little bit more. Cause even in her latest book, she talked about her process of respecting her body a lot more than she has as an adult. So I think that would be a dream guest, like, to be on.
To be on hers. That's so good. And I have not read her current book. What is it? It's Fierce, Fire, and Free or
Fierce,
something?
Free, and Full of Fire.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're going to link to it in the show notes because I have been interested in that book as well. I actually need to add that to my list. So that is those are fantastic. And we're going to check out, what was the other one?
It's Everything Happens with Kate Bowler. So she goes in seasons and then she just stops for a little bit. She is a professor of divinity at Duke Divinity School. I think it's professor. Anyway, I know it's like Duke Divinity School. She does something with that. So I think probably she schedules things within her scholastic year, but I'm just guessing. Actually, I'm just making that up. I really don't know. I just know that she says and then
that
takes
sounds
a break.
great.
But she says
It sounded good to me.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to link to all that in the show notes. That way y'all can go check out these podcasts as well. I love Jen Hatmaker. I've seen her speak and she is full of fire, and y'all should go follow her on Instagram because she's awesome. So my last question is, and I think I've asked you this before, but do you consider yourself a perfectionist?
No. I used to. and I was wrong because I never have been. However, I am someone who gives a lot of thought prior to doing something, which I can get tripped up in that. And I know that that's a tendency of perfectionists. But no, I'm not a perfectionist. I just want to make sure that I'm doing it good enough. But I give a lot of thought to that good enough sometimes. And even like right now, I'm having an issue with my landing page from ConvertKit, and I'm sure it's on my end, and it's driving me crazy. Now, is that good enough? Can people still sign up to, for whatever the landing page is for? Yes, they can, but it's driving me crazy.
Well, Amy, this has been just an incredible conversation today. I'm so grateful that you've shared so many tips about us just getting off our butts, you guys. Like that's the bottom line is don't be sitting down all day, every day. If you are brand new to moving around and just getting some movement, like Amy said, we're not talking about signing up for an Ironman or doing a triathlon. We're talking about just moving our body a few more times a day. But Amy, where can everybody find you and learn more about your podcast and all the other fun things that you have going on?
Yeah, well, I am on, I'm basically Graced Health everywhere. It's GRACED Health. So that's .com. I'm on Instagram, sometimes more than others, Facebook, sometimes more than others. I'm trying to be better, but I'm not great at it. I do have the Graced Health podcast, and then the podcast group as well, which we do challenges on there sometimes, and that's been a kind of a fun space. But that's basically where I am, like Graced Health, and there I am. And before I sign off on here, Crystal, I want to thank you for all you do because, you talk a lot about serving your audience. And I think that you are a great example of that. And I just want to thank you for all the hours that you put into this so I can do what I am doing and loving it. So your investment of your time has created joy for me. So thank you for that.
Okay, I'm not gonna cry. That's so sweet. That's so sweet. And I do. I hear you, and I so appreciate you saying that because I mean, I see it. I see you actually having fun and not just saying, "Oh yeah, I have my podcast. It's kind of fun." Like, no, like you're very transparent about, it's hard some days. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but you know that you're reaching people and you're making a difference in your listeners' lives. And that is like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry. Like that's just so incredible because that is my mission is just to make it to where podcasters are having fun. So thank you so much for your words. Thank you for coming on the show today. And I'm going to link to everything that Amy's talked about, but thank you so much, friend.
Hey, I am appreciative. Thank you for having me, and anything I can do to talk with you more is great with me.
Oh my gosh, I'm still cracking up because that was such a fun conversation. And I'm still imagining Amy dancing around her house and doing these like funky stretches and us doing dance parties in our house. Like we can do all of these things, y'all. Like we don't really have any excuse to have a totally sedentary lifestyle. Even if you're podcasting and you work from home and you're sitting on your butt most of the day, I'm going to challenge you to get up and start moving. I'm actually recording this right now, like as I'm standing, because I was inspired. I was like, why am I sitting so much during the day? Whenever I know that I have so much more energy, I can feel it in my voice and everything that I'm doing whenever I stand up more. So I have been drinking plenty of water today. I am recording this standing up. So I'm actually doing this. I am taking action and starting to implement a lot of the strategies and the tips that Amy shared with us today. So make sure you go check out the show notes for this episode, crystalprofit.com/episode 164, and grab Amy's resources. So gracedhealth.com/resources is where you're going to find all the cool things that she talked about here today. And I'm just so excited to see Amy's journey unfold as a podcaster, but also to help other people because that's what she really has the heart to do. But that does it for today. So like I said, make sure that you go and check out the show notes for this episode, crystalprofit.com/episode 164, and grab Amy's resources and check out her podcast because it's so awesome. And if you're a woman over 40 and you are looking for some personal training tips, she can absolutely help you out. But if this is your first time tuning in, I would love for you to subscribe to the show and listen to all the fun things that we have coming up. There are some really cool solo episodes that I had planned to do over this summer that I hope you're going to find lots of value in. And make sure that you subscribe to the show, leave us a rating and a review, and take a screenshot wherever you're listening to this and tag me on social media. Share it out on Insta Stories or on Instagram or even in our Facebook group, the Profit Podcast Online Community. And remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.